This is one of the first images that I shot with the Canon 1DX Mark III using a 35mm. This one was shot at f1.4 in a very dimly lit room. And this is a raw image right off the camera. So, I mean, look how great this is. Now, because it is f1.4, you can see the nose is not in focus, but the eyes are, which is good. I mean, there's a whole bunch of portrait looks here, black and whites. I love black and white, but for this image, no. Let's go through all these settings just to experiment with Lightroom Classic. I'm not going to crop this at all. New feature in Lightroom Classic here, I like this. You can select and it'll automatically mask the image, which is pretty cool. Once it's masked, literally I just selected the image. Now we can just highlight him. It's blown out. See? Pretty cool, huh? I want him to stand out a little more in the image. Like that's a little too dark. I want it to be close to the background. Because if you do it too much like this, it's going to look kind of fake. Sort of. So let's bring the exposure up just a little bit. That looks pretty good. Contrast. That's pretty cool. Don't want to flush out the colors. I tend to like a lot of contrast, but not too much. So I like, let's leave it right about there. That's nice. Highlights. I like to bring up all the way to the end just to see how much we can play with and how far it'll go. That's pretty cool. But let's bring them up just enough so we can outline around the face. So it's just too much because then the whites kind of want to get blown out. That's pretty good. Shadows. Could brighten him up even more. I kind of like it darker, but not too much. The whites, I'm going to blow out. I want the brownish tan fur over here to kind of stand out a little bit. But I don't want the whites to blow out like that. So that looks pretty good. Let's bring a little color into them. 22. Now we can do exposure of the whole image. I like the darks and I like the saturation. I don't like bright photos because everything's just like masked out in white. Good. Contrast. I love contrast. But not too much because I want to keep the detail in his snout. I think the image is a little too bright. Let's bring it down just a little bit. Okay. And the highlights, that's where you can really open up the image to make it breathe a little bit. See, no highlights. It's all flat. Could raise them up, but I don't want them up that much. That's good. Shadows. You know what? There are no rules. You do what looks good to you. Now I'm going to bring the shadows up just a little bit to get some more brightness in his eyes. And bring the exposure down a little bit. There you go. The whites start to blast out. I don't like it. Bring it down. Now I'm doing this by feel. In the histogram, it's starting to look good. You could also move the histogram over and do what you want to do, but I like to do one at a time. But I like to experiment because you never know. That's kind of nice. I'm going to do that. Bringing it up too much washes it out. This just adds a little bit more blacks, makes it pop. So I'm seeing a little too much color in there, so I'm going to probably go back and remove some of the vibrance. Now let's visit HSL color. Probably don't need to do much of this, but I always like to move them around just a little bit. The red, do like a manual white balance. The red, shoot it all the way down. Let's balance it out. That's not his color. So for this, I'm looking in the forehead area. This is the orange. There you go. I need more browns, so that's about right. Right about there. Yellows. There we go. Now we're talking. Bringing down the yellow from 0 to negative 27. I don't think we need to touch this too much. I'm just going to do the master just so it makes it pop just a little bit. Balances it out. There you go. I don't want a lot of shadow, but I also don't want it flat. I do not want this. That looks just terrible. There we go. There we go. Sharpening. They've always had this little box that shows you the amount of sharpening. It's focusing on his collar. That's nice to see. So let's do that. Okay, that's nice. Not going to sharpen it too much. Denoise with AI. It did get, I mean, you're really zooming on these pixels and on the hair. Look at that. 74%. Let's see what it does at 74%. It's creating another DNG image with the denoise feature. Lens corrections. I don't think we're going to need this. Nah, we don't need that. I always thought this was cheesy. It's like the 80s. I always, depending on the image, like to put a little black around it. A little too much. Let's do a little bit like that. Just to kind of take out the background. Calibration. One of my favorite things. I usually use this as a final touch. Shadows. You can do the tint on the shadows. Again, I'm bringing it all the way to the left. Too much green. All the way to, oh, too much blue. I like to see what we're working with. So I find a happy medium and then just rock my finger to find the happy medium. I like that as a little blue. You look guys like that or like that? Yeah, I think it's going to be like that. That's cool. That's what I'm looking for right there. Red primary hue. I think that's good. Saturation. Just to give it a little pop. I think that's a nice image. Now let me go back up and revisit the hues. The orange maybe. Now you can imagine why. Photographers charge what they do for a wedding. A lot of couples are like, but you're only with us for 8 hours. Why is it $3,000? Or whatever the rate is in your area. Well, gee, look at, I just did one image out of, what, 1,000 luminance. I don't spend much time in this tab. But it's the luminance of the orange. You know, it's a little too dark here, see? And now it's a little too bright. So let's go just like right like there. So I just brought the luminance up by like 10%. Yellow luminance. Yeah. You go all the way down, you're going to lose the detail right here in the mane, his shoulder. In the blue, you see down here, it looks kind of blue, the shadow. You could leave that, but if you bring it up more, it's going to lose that blue. So I kind of like that. I like that, and plus, if you look at his eye right here, bringing it up adds a sparkle in his eye. So I kind of like that. So I think that's pretty good. Compared to like an original, here's what... See, we went from something like this to this. Breathed life into it. To see this, it's like, oh, it looks alright, looks pretty good. But then when you get into it and edit it, you know, really brings the colors in it. I wonder, that is too much color, I think, though. So let me just bring that down just a bit. I like things to pop, but that's just like, bah, too much color. So here's 0. I'm going to bring it down to like -5. Let me bring the vibrance down just a little bit. That's what I was looking for. -2. -5. There we go. A little more. See, now we're kind of losing color. Bring it up. That looks good. -12. Okay, so there we go. I like it. Compared to this, you know. Let me bring the exposure down just a little bit. There we go, and bring up the highlights to 20%. I think that's our image, you guys. Thanks for watching. And sorry, it was kind of a long video, but I wanted to do one of these. There's gonna be more on the way. Let me know what you think, and any questions or comments, let me know. Thank you so much for subscribing, and I'll see you guys in the next video.